Hi everyone, welcome to a small walkthrough of our our assignment tree. This assignment had a lot of small things going on that kind of added on to make it a bit tougher. But in general, a lot of folks got the general big picture, which is good. And in this walkthrough, I want to really focus on some areas that are important for later assignments and kind of show off how to deal with some issues that might arise. So again, in the first scenario here, it's going to want you to have this output exactly as it is over here. So we can go ahead and just kind of walk through it together. Of course, to start off, we're going to make sure that all of our attributes are named to the parameter list. Again, in general, if you are ever referencing variables that are inside of your methods after your constructor, always make them up here because this allows it to have access to the entire class. So for my first one, I'm going to have my name, and then I'm going to set my date, self.date, to be the date. Self.cost per person is going to be equal to cost per person. And then self.guest is going to be equal to guest. And then self.tax rate is going to be equal to tax rate. Now, of course, this is very similar to like self.iColor is equal to iColor and so forth. And you can see we have a few defaults up here as well that we could use, which is good. And now what we can go ahead and do is just try to get these getters. So whenever we have a get variable, it's very straightforward in what we want to do. We just essentially want to return whatever value that is there. So let me go ahead and set that real quick. We're going to want to return whatever thing we need. So in here, I'm going to return self.name. I'll return self.date down here. Return guess right here. Oops, and not self. I need to return self.guess, not guess, because guess doesn't exist in the entire scope of it. And then I'm going to say return self.cost per person. And then I'm going to return the tax, so return tax rate. Awesome. Now, we can go ahead and try to calculate the total soon and just try to fiddle around with how we can get these numbers to work as well. But a very important part here that I want to focus on is this kind of section here, which is eval representation of O. Now, not everyone got this part down, and I kind of I was a bit lenient with this area just because as long as you got the other areas on, it was fine. But there's a few things that we can do with formatting that I want to kind of focus in on here in this video. So the string is pretty easy to represent. We could see here when we say string of O, we're just going to output all of the pieces of information with colons between them. So what I can return here is essentially the format of self. You see here, I can return the string of these guys all side by side, like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, then 5. And then I'll say dot format, self.name, self.date, self.cost per person, self.guest, tax rate. Cool. Now, if I go ahead and I run this guy, oops. If I go ahead and run this guy, let me go ahead and just make a fresh order. And if I type out O, we'll see here, oops, I need to print out my O right here. We'll see that I get a pretty basic output of what they look like. And now if I go ahead and I try to do my O.getData, getName, so forth, we'll see that I'm getting stuff back. And I'm only getting the default ones because I didn't add in anything. But again, if I put in tech conference, it would just be back tech conference. Now, the next thing I want to look at is this copy thing. So this is where it can get a little bit more confusing. Pull this guy up here. Our copy, essentially, if you see here, when we type out the representation of O, it's going to return the order object. So this is the order object that we're working with. And the reason this is important is because our representation is supposed to return a value that we can assign to a variable. And this variable can then go ahead and have access to all of the things. So essentially, when we call this line of code here, copy is becoming an order object. Now, you might be tempted to go ahead and just say, okay, well, I'm just going to try to make sure that I put everything in from order here. So let me do an example really quick. You might put in like something order, open this guy up, and then I'm going to go ahead and just fill him in. Pretty similar to what I did above already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go ahead and grab these guys and just kind of toss them in there, which is good. And now if I go ahead and I try to run this guy, oops, let me put commas between them. I'm going to try and say O is equal to order of a tech conference 12/13/2018. And I'll copy this so that I don't need to type it out as much anymore. 0.09. Let me put this to 1000. And let me go ahead and hit enter. Excuse me. So now this will go ahead and create this order object. Let me put him right here. So whenever I run my code, it will run that. And now after I created this order object, I'm going to try to say, okay, string of O. Okay, that looks pretty good. Something similar to what we have on the side there. And if I say representation of O, that looks pretty decent as well, but we might be missing a few things here. As you can see, I'm kind of missing the other side of the edge here, and I'm not really getting the kind of quotes that are in there. And this is where this representation one can be a bit tricky. So to actually go ahead and start this out, let me put this in here. And if I try to run this one more time, see it like so, we'll notice if I hit representation of O, okay, I still don't have those quotes, so not really the best, but maybe I could say something like copy is equal to eval representation of O. And you'll notice here, this is where I saw a lot of these errors is I'm getting this invalid syntax essentially. And what's happening is that inside of your formatter, there should be a way to essentially dictate to you how to individually make these into objects. So again, I didn't take off too much for this one because it's a very specific scenario. But again, what's happening here is that we want all of these we want to return essentially an order object. And one way that we could do this here is inside of this creation of these guys, we can go ahead and put between these curly brackets here, we can go ahead and add in a backslash quote, followed by backslash quote again. Let me do it this way here. Oops. Great. And essentially what this will do for us here is make it so that this becomes an object that we can look at. And if I run this one more time, my O should still be there. And I'll say copy is equal to eval representation of O. And now we could see here, I'm not getting that error that I had anymore. And now if you notice right here, I'm getting this tech conference that will be there. And now if I get copy.get name, see if this works. I get tech conference. Let me try to get the date here as well. And we'll see here that now my date is actually becoming this division of these guys up here. So 12 divided by 13 divided by 2018 actually makes it all of these. And let me go ahead and just try to do a copy of .get total guest here. See if this guy works. Yeah, and so that's working too. So let's try to solve this one issue where this one isn't working. And let me try to return this as a string really quick. And let's say copy is equal to eval representation of O. Cool. Oops. And you know what I'll try to do here is I'm going to try to add in this backslash quote. Backslash quote. Let's try him one more time. Great. And now we'll see here that when I add in my backslash quote in between these areas here, I'm actually getting the formal representation of what it is. And because these guys are already numerical values and are staying the same, that's fine. But now this pretty much makes them as a string. You can add them to all of them if you'd like, but really the only first two strings are what we're worried about. And now you might be able to avoid that error that we saw earlier. So again, that was a tricky one. I didn't take off points for that one if it was giving you errors there. But again, that's just something to keep in mind. Now, the other part is this calculate total that we have here. And the total that we're working with is most likely the amount of guests. So let's say 50 guests times 1,000. And then we probably times that by, 0.09. And then we'll most likely need to add on the tax that's right there onto the overall amount of guests there. So if I do 50,000 plus 4,500, like so, we'll get the amount there. So what we need to do here is try to actually put this into code. So we can say tax amount is equal to self.guest times self.tax rate times self.cost per person. And then we could say return self.guest times self.cost per person plus the self.tax rate. And now, after all this, we can go ahead and say, okay, O is equal to order. And let's do, oh, actually I messed up. Let me rerun this. So O, and then we could say copy is equal to eval representation of O. And then copy.getName. See if this one works. Cool. Copy.getDate. Great. Copy.getTax. Oops. Did I tax amount? Oh. Return. I think I forgot a self somewhere. There I go. Did that on purpose. One more time. Let's try to get this copy. See if there's any more errors. Great. And now let's say self.calculate total. And getting one more error here. Name self is not defined. Oh, that's because I didn't see that one there. Calculate total. Cool. Oh, and it looks like I'm not calculating it just right. I'll need to go ahead and add on one more little change here. Oh, this is not supposed to be a tax rate, but the tax amount that we calculated. So one final time. Copy.calculate total. Great, and now we're getting the same answer. Awesome. Sorry for the few errors there, but again, this is kind of the process of going through objects. Even I forget about the self sometimes. But again, this part is only the first part of this assignment area, but I really want to focus on this, what's going on here, essentially with these guys as well, as they are allowing you to keep them as strings and then keep them formatted. And essentially, this is one where you can return an order object essentially and then copy it over. And we use this eval method right here to make it into an order. So in the next part of this video, I'll go through the other two parts of this. But again, please let me know if you have any more questions with this or if you need any more help. Thank you.